Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Final Fantasy VII. In the last part we wrapped up basically everything else in the world we can do before tackling the final dungeon, and now I'm doing the one last thing you really can do. Remember that villa we showed off here that you could potentially buy for 300,000?
Is there any actual purpose to this?
Not that I'm aware of. It's basically
come on,
just
you
there
can't
for
can't even customize it like the one in Pokemon in Generation 4 of Pokemon.
I want to say you can maybe use it as an inn, but beyond that I can't really think of anything else. The only other thing I could technically do, but I'm not because it takes way too much time, is you might remember the huge materia that we left back at Bugenhagen's place. If I wanted to, I could master the materia required for those and get the actual master materia from them. But, no. So, for right now, let's just go over our setup for the final dungeon. I'm bringing the same party I used for the Midgar raid, and just because these two haven't gotten much screen time in the past bit. And this is what they're bringing in terms of actual materia setup. A lot of things just to have a lot of things on them. Barrett has a lot of things with high AP for missing score. Master materia's on some people. Things linked to the correct things. Enemy skills on everyone, so on and so forth. Because you might notice there's even still some enemy skills we have not yet learned at this point. But that's because the last couple are in the final dungeon.
The final dungeon is by far one of my favorite places in the game.
Oh, absolutely. The Northern Crater is a great final dungeon. I'd say the first good final dungeon in the series was probably the Void in 5, followed by Kefka's Tower. This just follows up a really strong trend.
I don't know, I didn't really like Kefka's Tower that much. I was a little underwhelmed by it.
What I ended up liking about it is it did something that only one other dungeon did, first off with the 3 characters thing, and it felt like everyone was actually working in tandem. Also, I love this music track!
Yes. It's got a little hint of Aerith's theme in there.
Little hint of Aerith, a little hint of those who know the planet. It's just great. It's called Judgment Day. It's fantastic stuff. And starting off, our first enemy for the parts is a Gargoyle. This thing has 2,000 HP, no elemental weaknesses, and at the start, it's actually in stone. Either after a certain amount of time passes, or you hit it with something that's not the standard attack command, it'll unfreeze itself and be damageable. It has 2 notable attacks. Rock Touch, which inflicts Slow Numb or Slow Petrify on you, and level 4 Death. Otherwise, though, not much to worry about from it. Doesn't even drop. It could drop remedies.
Wait, level 4 Death or level 4 Suicide?
Death.
That's a thing?
Yeah. I think it's the only enemy in the game that has it. But
What the heck?
yeah, kind of terrifying.
Man, you'd think there's like level 5 Death, but no, it's also level 4.
Also, before Kenny goes over this enemy, something I forgot to mention. The first chest we opened this area, we got a save crystal. That is essentially a save point you get to place down in your place of choice in the dungeon. Like everyone, though, you should save it until right before the end.
No. This enemy, which Kyle's probably beaten already because they're very easy, is a Parasite, 6,000 HP, 1,100 XP, 100 AP, and 1,000 Gil. Drops Remedy upon defeat, and you can also steal a Remedy from it. Doesn't have any morphs. No, it actually morphs into a Remedy. As you can expect, because it has some droppable remedies that you gotta be careful with your status effects. They will never use their level 5 Death or Magic Breath, so for the player to earn those those enemy skills, they have to manipulate them and force them to use them. Kinda similar to Dragon Force, I think. There's another ability like that. White Wind as well is another one that's like that.
Yeah, I've never really been a fan of the blue magic type spells you can only learn if you manipulate them in some way, just because it feels like they're there just to have the player search out for them endlessly, such as the ones this thing has. This is the Dark Dragon. 14,000 HP, 5,000 XP, 350 AP, 2,500 experience points. Immune to lightning, no other elemental weaknesses though. You can steal dragon armlets from them, they can drop elixirs, they can be morphed into vaccines. They have Ultima, so be careful of that. But the two things that we want from them, we can only get through manipulation. Dragon Force and this laser attack. Laser reduces the target's HP to half of its current value. At least it does damage up to quad 9s. It can't do more than that. Dragon Force, on the other hand, increases the target's attack and defense by 50%, and you can stack it twice to double it. It's a surprisingly useful in concept enemy skill, but just due to how late you get it, it doesn't get much use.
I never use it. I just think it's cool.
It's got a great name. Sounds like the name of some shonen anime from the late 90s. You've heard of Dragon Ball, but now it's time for Dragon Force. Now! The biggest things I'd say to fear in the Northern Crater to start is the length of it, because it is a relatively long final dungeon compared to the rest of the games in the series at this point. And there are some fairly dangerous enemies if you're not careful. Because I could think of at least 3 or 4 that can inflict instant death in some various ways. And there's also just a lot of pathways to get a lot of chests. In fact, fittingly being the final dungeon, I think this place has more items than any of the others. Including some hidden ones like that HP absorb material, which I did not know was there for my first couple of playthroughs. Now, I know at one point there is a cave early on in the first room that you can leave, but something I've never tried because I never have a purpose to is leaving the Northern Crater outright from like near the end of it. So I'm not sure if there's an actual point of no return here. Obviously, by the time I'm editing this, I'll probably know for a fact and post that right now. But as it is currently, I'm not sure. Ooh, new enemy.
These enemies are called the Scissors. I hate these things. I hate these things. 2,900 HP, 1,000 XP, 90 AP, and 1,400 gil. You can steal in either. They drop X potions, but they don't have any morphs on them. They divide into the upper and lower parts depending on which one you defeat first, but the HP amount is the same. What you'd probably want to worry about the most is the lower body. At least from my personal experience, there's nothing on these notes that talks about the dangers of the top or bottom part.
They're usually an enemy I don't encounter, so I don't have a lot of experience with fighting them. I'm more familiar with some of their cousins in other games, because that design isn't a completely original one. Because I think something like that showed up in 5, and I think they were fairly dangerous there. Controlling this section is a little bit awkward, because you have to stand in a specific place to be able to jump up to certain other places to get things like Mega Elixirs, which, even though I'm in the final dungeon, I'm not going to use because I might need them later. What do you mean there's only 20 minutes left in the game? Well, not actually. There's a text timestamp. 50-ish minutes left in the game? At least for us. For you, if you're playing along, maybe hour and a half.
Depends on how much you feel like grinding, because this place definitely has awesome grinding spots in it.
Yeah, for both, I think EXP and AP, this is the best grinding spot in the game. Well, not right here specifically, but in a room later on.
I mean, even this room is pretty good for it, but there are better rooms. For sure.
And we're thinking of one in particular. Alright, new enemy, this... Or not. Oh, wait, no, I just used that as a transition point to get back here. Okay. You tricked me past me, how dare you? And that's probably also going to trick future me when I get to editing these. And now for, I guess, the closest thing this place has to a gimmick. Right in this room where everyone's standing, there are two paths, left and right, and you have a choice of where to send each party member. Honestly, for the most part, it doesn't matter. What this mostly impacts is what items you get at the end of the dungeon from these particular characters. The only thing I'm going to say is, make sure Tifa goes along the right path, because the best item you can get out of all of this is gotten by her if you send her that way. Barring the items I'm gonna get here, I'll probably, in my usual information call-out, tell what items are given by who, depending on which way you send them, starting like right now for the next minute or so. Because there are a lot of potential items. In fact, there's even technically more choices than that. The one thing I will say, though, is no matter what, never send Yuffie on a path on her own, because she will keep whatever item she finds if there's not someone with her.
That's dumb. She's a thief.
Yeah. Ninja thief. No, though, I gotta admire her gumption, sticking by her guns like that, even in the middle of a world crisis. There is one more choice to this, though. If you send people down the left, there's also going to be a choice of sending them down an upper or lower path. And they also have a different item set for that. However, since I've only sent myself and my other two characters along the left path, they're just going to go with me no matter what. We're going to start on the upper path, and we're actually going to end up looping back around to there eventually, and this room, and the only other place this song plays in the game, too.
Yes, this room is my favorite room in the game. For multiple reasons,
Starting off, though, we got some familiar enemies in here, and that's actually not the only one. Starting off, we got the Alamagnas, or I guess Ahriman representation of the game.
It's Alemania, it's French for Germany.
Really?
Yeah.
What? That's weird. 8,000 HP, 1,300 experience points, 100 AP, 1,360 gil. You can steal eye drops from them. They can also drop them. They can also use level 4 death on you. They also got level 3 flare, but otherwise they're not too important because none of those are enemy skills. Just make sure if you have level 99 characters, if you grind it up all the way, be careful here because they will kill you, or at least do a lot of damage to you. But otherwise, their levels multiple 4 to 3, so level 3 fire or death or suicide could be used against it if you manipulate it correctly. No elemental weaknesses, just go all out. Probably one of the easiest versions of that enemy type in the series, honestly. Also, this room is just visually weird. Like, it looks moist in places it shouldn't, if that makes sense. There's all this hair growing all over the place. I know Materia and Mako can do some weird shit, but come on.
I mean, I always thought it was just kind of just brimming with life because you were near the center of the planet, and that's why. That's
a good point. And what I guess that retroactively, maybe
like,
go ahead.
Like I was gonna say, kind of like the Ipa tree in Final Fantasy IX, for example.
Gotcha. I'll go over my thoughts on it, some more thoughts on it in a moment, because it's time for someone very familiar.
It's time for probably my favorite enemy in the series, I won't lie. This is the Magic Pot. 4,096 HP, 8,000 experience points, and 1,000 ability points. 8,500 gil, drops a turbo either upon defeat, can't be morphed or manipulated. The only way you can damage this thing is by giving it an elixir, which is very unique to this game and Final Fantasy XII, I want to say. I'm pretty sure that one also has this rendition. They first appeared in Final Fantasy V. You had to throw elixirs at them and they'd say, give me an elixir, and then they'd run away and give you 100 ability points in the Phoenix Tower. Really good stuff if you wanted to grind for mime. In 6, they're in like the Fanatics Tower, and they're fairly nice enemies. They heal you and then they run away, giving you 5 magic points for free. 7, obviously the best grinding mechanic in the entire game. I don't know if they exist in 8. 9 doesn't have any of them. 10 has a really annoying one that I absolutely despise. And 12 has one in the Pharos that is extremely dangerous. I think it has max magic and casts flare.
Whoa, that was weird. Internet problems there for a second. We okay?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, that's something. My internet's been a bit choppy today, but we can still go on. The magic pots overall, fairly interesting enemies, but they're not the big draw here in this area. But it's time for some of the weirdest enemies here. These are the Christophers and the Jiggys. Starting off with the Christophers, 6,000 HP, 1,300 experience points, 80 AP, 800 gil, can steal earth drums, and they can drop phoenix downs. They have a giant amount of enemy skills and magic, including Frog Song, Cure 2, Bolt 3, but they're not very notable otherwise.
Yeah. The Giggys, whatever those horse-looking things are, 5,500 HP, 700 experience points, 60 AP, and 600 gil. They drop ethers, and this is one of the rare enemies where you can actually steal elixirs from, but with the W item glitch, you kind of don't need that, unless you're, like, actually fresh out of elixirs. This is a decent place to get them.
Yep.
Watch out for Petrify Eye.
Yeah, and the very weird thing about that enemy is that it's actually based off David Bowie, because it's named Jiggy. In katakana, it translates roughly to bad horse, which explains the shape of it, but it can also be read as Jiggy, which is how the Japanese would generally say Ziggy, as in Ziggy Stardust. And here we are at the bottom. So I'm actually going to place the save crystal right now, but if you head to the left, you'll actually trigger everyone coming back. However, there are two other entrances to this room. One leads to the other pathway on the left that we didn't take, and the other leads to the pathway on the right. I'm going to head back up around the left and head down the right, because even though everyone gets an item from the pathway you sent them down, due to a glitch, you can head down and up the other pathways to get their items as well. And speaking of item, the Master Tomberries here are very particular about that. 44,444 HP, 6,000 EXP, 200 AP, 6,800 gil. No elemental weaknesses. You can steal elixirs, they can drop mega elixirs, but most importantly, depending on the type of personality you are and you don't have 3 of them already, you can morph them into ribbons. You can also run into these guys in certain portions of the battle square, but they're just more consistent to find here. Similarly to other versions of Tomberries, though, they slowly move towards you, and if you get close enough, they'll use Knife, which either kills you or extraordinarily hurts. But unique to these ones is the move Everyone's Grudge, which does damage to a target dependent on the amount of enemies they've killed throughout the game. However, they're susceptible to stop, so not the biggest threat if you have the containment materia. Now, going back to that weird little room from a few moments ago, retroactively after Advent Children, my theory was that that's an early sign of the geostigma that ends up plaguing the world during that. More on that when we get to that movie. There we got the Mega All Materia. I actually forget what that does outright. There's a couple materia in here that we haven't talked about, and I probably just put the usual callouts up of what they do. All the unique materia here are interesting, but not very useful, if that makes sense. You good, Kenny?
Yeah.
All right.
We're having just some problems hearing you every now and then is all.
Gotcha. Alright, what enemy is this? Oh, these things!
This is a armored golem. I've never fought this enemy before, so this is a new one for me. 10,000 HP, 2,500 XP, 100 AP, and 2,680 gil. Very specific amount there. You can steal turbo ethers from them, so it'd be a good idea to steal those. They drop echo screens, and they morph into guard sources. So if you've got Yuffie's Conformer, that's a good thing to do if you want to raise your, I believe, vitality it is.
Also, I gotta say, I'm not a big fan of these 2 or 3 screens, I think, of the Northern Crater, just because they all look the damn same. Not the best environment design there to me.
Nothing too special about these guys. I believe they have a defensive. They have a defensive form.
something that we're not going to be showing off
But I
here,
don't think that actually changes their stats.
Maybe? I actually can't remember. Now,
Well, yes,
one
it
enemy, I
does.
can't
It
recall
changes
where
their
they...
defense from 108 to 400. So you want to move to magic attacks then.
Alright, that makes sense. Now, one thing I can't recall about where this enemy is, also the controls here are a bit awkward, just like when you're trying to get to Aerith in Disc 1. One thing I'm not certain of is... There's an enemy called Movers in this dungeon. I forget exactly where they are. They're either in the room with the magic pots or in that pathway we were just on. If you defeat them, they have the highest AP drop out of any enemy in the game.
Rovers?
Yeah, Rovers. I'm thinking of their incarnation in 5 where they were called Movers, I think.
They might be called movers in this game. I don't remember.
But if you can find them, try and take them out. If you can't, don't worry, because if I recall, they have fairly high evade.
You can just kill them with, like, Shadow Flare or something. I think ×4 cut, doesn't bypass it, but, I don't know. I've never had trouble hitting them.
It could be a level thing.
Not sure.
Either way, here along the right path now, we find immediately a Mistile, which we got back in the raid on Midgar as well, my favorite equipment piece in the game, so you're damn right I'm putting that on someone. Now, so far, we haven't had many more enemy skills since the first portion of the dungeon. That changes now. Starting off, we got Pollen Santa's 4,000 HP, 1,000 EXP, 100 AP, 1,000 gil. Absorbs fire, unlike their cousins back in Disc 2. You can steal hypers from them, they can drop X potions. They have a lot of fire attacks, but the big thing from them we want to get is the Angel Whisper enemy skill from them. That restores statuses, revives, restores to full HP, and I want to say might cast Life 2 technically as well. Or revive or whatever, but I might just be thinking of another enemy skill from later in the series. Right, I think I am, because I don't think Life 2 or Life 3 is the thing in this game, is it?
It is. Life 2 is. Wait a minute. I think Life 3 is a thing in this game.
I can't quite remember. Tetra Elemental, that would have been useful 10 parts ago. But now I'm at the end of this room almost, and I think if I recall correctly, I end up having to walk around in circles for a while just to get the last few enemies I need to show up here to show up. And by that I mean the one enemy, because there's one more enemy with an enemy skill we can only learn in this room from my knowledge.
Well, that's why I never learned it. I never got to master it. Death Jokers, or Death Dealer. Death Joker is the name of the failed Kate Sith slot thing. 7,000 HP, 1,800 XP, 200 AP, 1,200 gil. You can still turbo either of them, and they drop Kiss of Death and X Potion. I think Kiss of Death causes death. You can learn the roulette enemy skill from them. Interestingly enough, they have 5 different card-based attacks, kind of similar to the regular Jokers we see outside of Corel, I believe. Emperor, which restores HP, but it doesn't heal anything to the Death Joker because they're immune to the restorative element, which is the strangest thing ever. Hidden One always inflicts death, so I think even if you have a ribbon on, it's unavoidable. Stars will be used twice in one turn. I'm not sure. May it use twice in one turn. I'm not sure what this says here. Sun will always inflict silence and darkness, and World inflicts stop. So ribbons are good to have against these guys.
The annoying thing about this enemy is getting that roulette enemy skill, because what it does is that it randomly selects someone on the field to just inflict instant death on. And because of this, I actually recommend, I think I showed it off when we first got to this route, I put all 3 of the enemy skill materia for this portion of the game, or this room, on Vincent, just so I could kill him and have all 3 learn it at once. That took me, I think, about 15 minutes to learn, if I recall correctly. I might be off on that timer.
It's a 25% chance they cast it, right? I don't remember. Maybe it might be lower than that.
It's 25% to cast without manipulate, but even with manipulation, you still have to hit the right person. And I'm walking around in circles in this room again to find one more enemy, This is the Dragon Zombie. What an imposing enemy. 13,000 HP, 4,000 experience points, 3,000 AP, 2,800 gil, no elemental weaknesses. You can steal cauldrons from them, which I think just do fire elemental damage. They can also drop them and have X potions drop. They can be morphed into vaccines, they can poison you. They got Shadow Flare, so watch out for that, though. If you didn't learn it from Ultimate Weapon, this is where you could get it. But the annoying thing is, upon death, only on the first time you kill them, by the way, they will cast the last enemy skill in the game, Pandora's Box. Due to a glitch in the game's programming, this will only ever happen the first time you take out a dragon zombie.
Doesn't also use Pandora's Box?
Yes, I think. Actually, I think that boss that you're talking about, I think it actually triggers a flag that causes the move to be usable again, but since it's after a point of no return, you legitimately can't get the move at that point again. I want to say future versions of the game fixed that issue, but I can't quite recall. Either way, Pandora's Box isn't even that very useful of one, but it's damn near a confusing looking attack. And now let's meet up with the party. And by that I mean meet up with them and then immediately leave and then come back in. I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, I think I was trying to talk to Sid. But now we can talk to everyone and start getting their items. In particular, Tifa's, the reason I sent her down the right is that she gives us a mithril, which is the correct translation for the mistile. This is the only way you can get 3 mistiles in the original game, and given that they are quite literally the best equipment you could probably get in the PlayStation 1 version, you're damn right it's worth using this glitch. Now, one of these people gives you a mistranslated item, but I think I didn't get that because I sent the wrong person down a different path. Usually when I go through this dungeon, I use my final dungeon party, or my final boss party, which is going to be, I believe, Cloud, Sid, and Red. But I can't quite remember. Oh, no, that's what it was. It's Yuffie. She gives you a last elixir. That's a mega elixir. It's just I think, a transliteration of the Japanese text. All right, now let's finally do something. Took a look at Cloud's stats there. Time to use all of my sources on him. Yes, yes, grow powerful.
He's level 69.
Yeah, nice. That's a powerful Cloud. And with that, let's drop one last save. And with that, we're going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching. And in part 35, it's endgame, folks.
Woo!
See you guys then.